What's going on there, guys and gals? Welcome back. So I'm out riding on my Kawasaki ZZR1400 today, and a kind of a damning thought came into my mind about fuel rationing. This is going to be an interesting one. Let's get into it. So obviously you've probably all heard about the world events going on at the moment, and it's increasing the cost of living. One of those things, of course, is fuel. At least here in the UK, fuel has shot up massively. I mean, I've said this before on a number of occasions about fuel going up ridiculously, and it's kind of putting a lot of people in a position of being able to put fuel in their car or powering up their house for electricity, because all energy prices have shot up through the roof as well. So it kind of begs the question whether or not we're going to end up returning to the days of fuel rationing. So what we're going to do, we're going to go out for a ride on the ZZR, and we're going to discuss kind of philosophically whether or not fuel rationing is a good idea. So yeah, let's jump on the bike, let's go for a ride, and yeah, let's see where this journey takes us. Certainly not the best kind of road for the big old girl. So for those of you that didn't know, fuel rationing is actually a thing that happened during the Second World War. Now I'm not entirely sure if it also happened during the First World War, but not many people had their own kind of transportation. They didn't have their own cars and things that needed the fuel, so I'm not sure. And remember, the tank was invented in World War One, but in World War Two anyway, we ended up having to go through fuel rationing, of course, to allow as much fuel as possible to go into the hands of the military. And I mean, we haven't got to that stage yet where, you know, we're going through a massive energy crisis. Well, we are going through an energy crisis, but it's not like as if we need all of our resources going into the army or what have you. We're not like we're living in some kind of war economy at the moment. But it is a possibility that at some point in the near future, fuel rationing is going to happen. And it kind of got me wondering whether or not fuel rationing is just a good idea in general. Now, there are loads of ways to introduce fuel rationing. You could literally limit the amount of fuel that people can buy, or you could limit the amount of mileage that they do per day, or you could introduce days where you don't go and drive anywhere. You don't ride anywhere, you don't drive anywhere, and if you do have to go anywhere, you have to use an electric vehicle or something like that to, you know, to kind of reduce emissions. And I mean, that's going to be the main topic of today's video, is going to be about the whole emissions thing, and how having fuel rationing, how it will help us in economic terms, but also, well, financial terms, but also as well in eco terms as well, kind of like what's good for our planet. Now, I watched a very interesting video recently that was narrated by Stephen Fry. For those of you who live in the UK, you probably know who he is already. I can't remember what the channel name is, but I will put it, I'll put it on top of the video for you so you can actually see it. And I might even put the link of the video in the description for you as well to watch afterwards if you're interested in knowing more about what they had to say. But we're going to be following a lot of the same topics that they covered in that video. So fuel rationing, for one, is going to be a bit of a bummer for people like me because, you know, I like to be able to have the freedom to go whenever I want, wherever I want, and have the opportunity to buy the fuel to do it. Especially for, you know, the whole moto vlogging aspects of things, and I mean, not even just that, just having the opportunity to be able to go wherever you want, whenever you want, I think is one of those things that people seem to think is like they're entitled to that, you know? Like they're entitled to have access to fuel, they're entitled to have access to, you know, freedom of travel, you know? But in certain situations where the need is dire, we might go back into that era where our freedoms are restricted simply because of fuel requirements. Don't know what they were doing, but fuel right away. So yeah, it would be really annoying, but there are a few benefits to having these measures. One of them is, at the moment where the fuel prices are sky high, the demand for fuel will actually go down, which means that the price of fuel, in theory, will go down. So it will actually be easier on our pockets financially buying fuel if we did have fuel rationing, or at least days where we weren't allowed to go anywhere or drive anywhere or use a combustion engine of any kind to travel. So that's one benefit. Of course, the second benefit is that for a day or for some time every week, we're going to be saving ourselves emissions. And look, I know I've said before about, you know, how annoying it is that electric bikes are the future and it's inevitable, and we're no longer going to have motorcycles like these anymore. These absolutely legendary bikes, we're not going to be able to ride them anymore. There'll be a day we won't be able to buy them, they won't be built, and we'll just have to suck it up. And as annoying as that is, it's necessary. Yeah, I understand the need for it. I know I'm not some kind of Green Party person, but at the same time, you know, when my wife and I decide to have kids, it would be nice for them to have a future where they don't have to worry about emissions, and they don't have to worry about greenhouse gases, and they don't have to worry about climate change increasing in global temperature and all that stuff. It would be nice if they grew up in a world where that wasn't an issue like it is for us. And yeah, we have to do something about the climate crisis. We have to. There's like, you know, there's no way around it. And all of us driving our cars and motorcycles, of course, we're all contributing to that issue, that problem. Unfortunately, that is the reality, guys. Yeah, as much as I hate to say it, that is the reality, and it's one of those things that we all eventually are going to have to come to terms with. But yeah, fuel rationing, like I said, helping out the environment and helping out our wallets. And then of course we'll end up getting to the stage where, because so many of us will be driving and riding electric vehicles, that we won't have the need for fuel whatsoever. So when bikes like these become classics and they're 20, 30 years old or what have you, buying fuel is probably going to be really, really cheap. And it'll be really, really easy to get hold of, because hardly anyone is going to need it. So there is another benefit for everyone going electric for their cars. And I will say one thing, that making motorcycles electric for me makes the most sense, especially if you're looking at a city environment where there's, or in the UK at least, where there's ultra low emission zones and things like that, and people need to get around town. Well, if you have an electric motorcycle, you'll be able to do all your trips around town with battery capacity to spare, and everything's going to be great. You know, you're going to have access to anywhere you need to go without having to worry about any of these emissions laws and what have you. And on a motorcycle, it makes a lot of sense in a city, because yeah, less space and what have you, that people are able to get around a lot easier. But yeah, that's kind of going a little bit off topic there. But so there's that. And also, of course, the benefit of having fuel rations, at least if we decided to do it right now, is that it will give us more leeway when it comes to restricting imports from Russia. And of course, the time of filming is April 2022, so the whole Ukraine crisis with Russia, the Ukraine war, is still in full swing. It's still going ahead, and currently Europe, I mean Britain not so much, but the European Union is buying an awful lot of oil and gas from Russia still. And so if they enacted fuel rationing, at least for civilians, you know, people that don't need the fuel for enterprise kind of, or industrial uses, industrial purposes, you know, if it's just for civilian travel, civilian use, we can find other ways of traveling if we need to do our usual stuff, like go to the shops, or, you know, pick up our kids from school or whatever. I mean, ideally, ideally having a no driving day or no ICE day will be better served on a weekend where most people are going to be out traveling and things like that. You don't want to interrupt people, you know, from going to work and what have you during the midweek, but at the same time, the weekend is when people want to go out and do stuff, isn't it? So it is a bit of a catch-22. And yeah, by no means it's not a perfect solution, but it's certainly one of those ideas that I think could help us out quite a lot. And yeah, if we enacted these policies right now, then of course it would help us out with Ukraine. I mean, what was the it's something ridiculous, like the European Union buys, I don't know, like billions and billions of dollars worth of energy, and it supplies like $1 billion worth of weapons and defensive equipment to Ukraine. So it buys, well, like $30-40 billion worth of energy to, you know, from the Russians, which they're using for their war effort. But then they're only supplying Ukraine with $1 million worth, $1 million worth, or €1 million worth, I can't remember, of equipment to help defend themselves. And yeah, it's from that standpoint as well. I mean, I think all of us are kind of united. God, that kid just jumped right out in front of the road, man. What a moron, honestly. He was like so close to getting right in front of me. There would have been nothing I could have done. God's sake. So yeah, helping out Ukraine at the moment obviously is paramount. And as long as we can get ourselves off of Russian energy exports, then it'll be a massive blow to Putin's efforts in Ukraine. And yeah, we want to help them out as much as we can, and unfortunately that's a real sticking point, is we're simply not doing enough to help them out because we're importing so much of their energy goods or energy produce. I mean, and there's another reason why we kind of want to limit our fuel usage, and that is because we don't want to be dependent on other countries. You know, fuel at the moment, black gold as it's so called, we don't want to be fighting wars or conflicts over it, but at some point in the future we might have to, which is a very scary thought, especially if we don't wean ourselves off of fossil fuels, at least anyway. I understand that this is a very philosophical and political debate here, guys. I do get that. And it's a tough one. It's a real tough conversation to have, because we like our way of life and we don't want that to change, but we have to change it for the good of everyone, you know? Wow, what an idiot. Oh my god. He didn't even look, man. Didn't even look. Jesus Christ, what a moron. And that person was in the wrong lane as well. Man, there are so many morons out today on the road. It's crazy. Do you guys get that? Every once in a while, there are days where, you know, everyone's good and you don't have any problems on the road, and then you get days like today where there just seems to be loads and loads of idiots out. I don't know if that's just me. I think one thing to keep in mind about all this is ICE, internal combustion engines, they're an old technology. And even though, yeah, there are still innovations and things like that going on, it's old tech, you know, it basically hasn't changed in what, 100 years? You know, something ridiculous like that. The whole concept hasn't changed. The technology hasn't really changed either. So it is kind of getting to the point where we are outgrowing, as a society, as a species, we are kind of outgrowing this technology, and we need to move on, especially because a lot of vehicles nowadays are using a lot of electronic components anyway. You know, I'm not saying that electric is the only way forward, but it's the way forward that we have at the moment to kind of help ourselves wean off of fossil fuels. And yeah, I understand the whole mining thing, the lithium mining, the cobalt mining, the ethical issues that there are surrounding the mining of these materials, and those materials are also finite as well. It's not like there's an endless supply of lithium and cobalt, and these are the materials that we need to produce the batteries. I mean, they're going to run out as well. So electric certainly is not the be-all end-all when it comes to transportation and propulsion. We will need to develop something else after that as well, without a doubt. And these newer technologies could come in the form of, I don't know, mini nuclear reactors, I suppose. There's talk of nuclear reactors being miniaturized, and so they could end up actually becoming the future type of propulsion, and it would almost be like a hybrid car, I suppose. What you'd see today, where you'd have a battery, but you know, you could run on battery power for some amount of time, but it's actually the nuclear generator inside the car or inside the vehicle that is generating the power to propel the vehicle forward. So there's talk of that, and of course battery technologies as well. You think that they're going to get better in the near future or so, I would guess. But yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to be around the corner, guys. There might be something else that is cleaner and better than ICE motorcycles, ICE cars. You never know. And companies like Toyota are trying to develop hydrogen combustion, which, you know, basically is a cleaner version of a petrol powered or gasoline powered ICE vehicle. So yeah, you never know. You never know with technology and progression how it's all gonna work out. But unfortunately, something has to be done. I think that's the crux of the conversation here, the crux of the topic. Something has to be done, and we don't have much of a choice there, guys. But so that's why we need to enjoy these machines whilst we can. I've said this before, that I intend on keeping this ZZR for as long as I possibly can, for as long as I can ride it, and even then I might even just keep it as a paperweight afterwards, just as a memento to the good old days, you know, in 30 years time when internal combustion is going to be banned on public roads or what have you. I mean, they haven't announced that yet, but I'm assuming that that's the way it's going to go, you know. But yeah, guys and gals, thank you ever so much for watching this different kind of video today. Hopefully it's got some of you scratching your heads and got some of you thinking about the future, and yeah, and our children's futures as well, because that's what that's why we're doing this, you know. We're doing all this for our kids at the end of the day. They're trying to give themselves a better future than we did. Let's move away from the technologies of old, and let's move forward. Let's move on. Let's try and make something better for ourselves and for our children, you know. But yeah, I think that's enough philosophy for one day, guys and gals. Enough politics, I think. So hope you liked this video. Make sure to leave it a like if you did. Hit subscribe, hit the bell icon, leave a comment as well about your thoughts on the future of our energy needs and all that good stuff. And yeah, I will catch you all in the next video, guys and gals. Hope you're all doing well. Have a good one.